Yeah, I understand that in the Hebrew that Joseph means open to or interested in learning. And I love being a person who carries that way of seeing the world. I came to this conference at Paul's invitation, at Tamarack's invitation, because I wanted to learn about something that I know very little about, which is programs and policies. I know a lot about, or have explored, not know a lot about, but I've explored community and communication. But I don't understand community organizations. I don't understand relationships with governments and the ways in which you raise funds and so forth. So it's been a learning experience for me. Yes, when I was a young man, I started writing down questions every time I saw a great painting, or every time I read a great book, or every time I heard a great piece of music, or every time I noticed a diplomat whom I considered to be humane. I would write down a question or a series of questions that I'd like to ask that person. I ended up with 2,000 questions over the years, which I boiled down to about 300. And of course, Adler says there are only 39 questions in the universe. So I took those 39 questions and I wrote to these people that I so admired in the world. And out of 56 people, 55 said I could come. And these were people who did not have time to go to the washroom. But they were willing to give me 3 or 4 days of their time. The Assistant Attorney General of the United Nations, the President of Sweden, a whole lot of wonderful, wonderful people. I learned from them the foundation for me of community. I added to that learning with the 30,000 or so people I've done work with over the past 40 years, more intensively over the past 20 years or so with 15,000 people in explorations of community and workshops. And the fundamental question, the simplest question in the world that I asked all those people was this: if you had the opportunity to live in a world you would like to be part of, what would people be like with each other in that world? What would school teachers be like with students? What would students be like with each other? What would parents be like with children? What would workers be like with each other? What would foremen be like with CEOs? What would people be like with each other? And I asked that question of practically everyone you can imagine, from prisoners to police officers who put them in prison, from people from, I don't know, certainly many, many different cultures from around the world. I asked the question of students who were in elite schools and street kids, and everyone else. And the answers I got to that question were very simple. And I've summarized those in this really simple book that you have. The language in the book is quite quiet and gentle. It's not profound. I didn't write the book for erudite, sophisticated people like you. I wrote it for every man and every woman, and so it is very gentle and simple in its phrasing. And you can read it in about 2 hours. It won't take you very long. But I hope you enjoy it and get something out of it. But the answers to those questions congealed around what I call 5 qualities of character. The first of those, simply put, is genuine interest. When applied to the self, that means freedom with responsibility. And when applied to the other, that means responsibility with respect. When applied to the self, that means self-understanding. And when applied to the other, that means understanding in quotation marks of the other. Because my suggestion to you is that the wonderful thing about human beings is that we never understand each other. Understanding is a process, and it goes on forever, everywhere. I often kid in workshops that what I would like to say in relation to communication is that creative communication occurs when we go on not understanding each other together forever. So the first quality of character is genuine interest. The second quality of character that everybody talked about, I've come to call acknowledgment, not tolerance, because I will not tolerate certain things. I will not tolerate female infanticide, for example. But I can acknowledge female infanticide in a culture in which it has been occurring for thousands of years to maintain the population within the carrying capacity of its environment. I can acknowledge that without accepting it as right in the world in which we live today. The third quality of character is empathos, the Greek for empathy. And I mean here deep empathy, not seeing from within the eyes of another or sensing the reality of another, but becoming another, literally becoming as the other. Now, you may think that's impossible, but I've seen it happen thousands and thousands of times. And it's a magnificent thing to experience. When one person becomes so as another person that they can see the world as that person. The fourth quality of character is altruism. Altruism includes the wonderful comments of John McKnight when he talked about kindness. It also includes patience. It includes caring. And it includes the word that we are all so frightened of so often, love. For the individual, it includes self-actualization and the ability to love self. The fifth quality of character turns out to be trust. And I spent an hour or so last night exploring trust again in my life, my feeling about trust, because I had a conversation with Elizabeth yesterday, and as a result of that conversation, I changed completely everything I've come to believe about trust. Which happens to me all the time. I like staying awake at night. But the approach that I've taken to trust is not related to you. I'm not concerned with whether I can trust you. I will never know whether I can. We may live together for 75 years, and I'm pretty sure that I can trust you. But you might come to me on the 75th year and first day and say, Joe, I met him, and he's not you. So I want to ask a different question. As I stand before you, or as I sit with you, can I trust myself never to do anything knowingly hurtful to you? Now, I may do something hurtful unknowingly because God knows I'm not perfect. I have many things to learn and understand. But can I give it my best effort to try not to do anything knowingly hurtful to you? And the last quality of character, which ties all of the character qualities together, is a sense of oneness. This is the spiritual world, the world in which I find in me and in you a sense of joy and justice, the place that we can live together in peace. I often say that peace is the foundation of my life and that I live it through community. So those are the qualities of character. How can I sustain them? Well, I'm not so smart, so I don't know how to do communication such that I can sustain these qualities everywhere all the time, even though I really would like to. So I began thinking about creative communication, and I realized that the old stimulus-response model just didn't work for me. Even Stephen Covey's model of sending a message and interpreting the message and then receiving a message and then interpreting it and then receiving it, even that didn't go far enough for me. So I explored an approach to communication which I call meaning-based communication, in which we place meaning, and I enjoyed the circle work yesterday, in which we place meaning in the circle with each other, and then we explore that meaning together. As a result of that approach to communication, some things that I want to have in my community become automatic. The first of those is that there is no such thing as interpersonal power. It is impossible. I communicate in such a way that I cannot have power over another human being, and they cannot have power over me. But I have massive, massive personal power. And no one can interfere with my personal power. I wanted to communicate in such a way that humans cannot not be equal. They can be different, and of course we are wonderfully, wonderfully distinct and unique. But we cannot not be equal in creative communication. Conflict transformation became automatic. I didn't have to manage conflict. I didn't have to resolve conflict. Conflict was transformed because when we engaged with each other, our conflicts became differences. And differences became the foundation for the creation of new meaning together. As a result of that, rather than resolve a conflict, we could come to a place we both feel good about, which is the objective of my engagement with you. And I use engagement because I love the French engagement, which is so much deeper than togetherness. That if I engage with you creatively, conflict is a joy. It's something I revere because it is difference rather than pain and suffering. And the final implication of creative communication is that I can never predict the outcome of what happens between us. I call it openness under ignorance of the outcome. And I like life that way. It keeps life interesting, always and forever. So this little book you have is an exploration of some of those concepts and some of those ideas. And I thank you so much for the opportunity for spending 5 minutes or so talking with you about it. Please write to me or call me or email me with any of your thoughts. If you find the book to be distracting and a disappointment, please don't call. I'm a very fragile old man. Anyway, thanks for the time.